Welcome to 13 Degrees of Screams,
where we scream so you don't scream.
We're your host, Alex.
And Stephanie.
And this week, we get some chocolates from a murderer in My Bloody Valentine.
Before we get started, make sure you subscribe and click the bell to be notified when we post new episodes.
My Bloody Valentine is a 2009 American 3D slasher film and a remake of the 1981 Canadian film of the same name. The film focuses on the residents of a small town that is plagued by a serial killer in mining gear on Valentine's Day, who is believed to be the same murderer who was thought to have died a decade prior. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 62% with a critical consensus that states, "This gory, sense-assaulting slasher film is an unpretentious, effective mix of old-school horror stylings and modern 3D technology." It also has a 44% audience score.
On Valentine's Day 1997, in the small town of Harmony, an explosion at the Hanager mine traps 6 miners underground with only Harry Warden surviving in a coma. Tom Hanager, the mine's owner's son, is blamed for the explosion due to neglecting to vent the methane lines. A year later, Warden awakens and begins a killing spree. Tom Hanager, his girlfriend Sarah, and their friends, including Irene and Axel, are attacked by Warden while partying in the mine. Sheriff Burke intervenes, shooting Warden, but he disappears into the mines. 10 years later, Tom returns to Harmony after his father's death to sell the mine, angering Ben and the mining community. Axel, now the sheriff, is married to Sarah but is having an affair with her employee, Megan. Soon after Tom's arrival, a series of murders by a masked assailant reignites fears that Warden has returned. The investigation reveals shocking truths about the miner's identity, leading to a dramatic showdown and uncovering the dark secrets of Harmony. We are about to discuss major spoilers for the rest of the film. Please jump to 15 minutes and 13 seconds to avoid those for our ratings. At Tom's motel, a masked assailant kills Irene and 2 others, and Axel receives a box of chocolates containing Irene's heart. Meanwhile, Tom reconnects with Sarah and apologizes for his absence.
Irene.
So this whole town is just intermixed a little too much already.
How so?
Well, in the very beginning, we find out that Axel hates Tom. I'm guessing because of what happened with the mining situation. We don't really go into it. He just hates him. And obviously now that we know that he has married Sarah, we know it's because he was with Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this whole Irene situation, he was dating Irene at the time of the attack, but now she has been killed. But she was also hooking up with a truck driver at a motel. She spends a lot of time in this future scene naked, completely naked.
I wanted to talk about this scene because what are we doing here?
Right. Just very butt ass naked.
I want to preface this by saying I'm not like a prude, but this was also so unnecessary.
Yeah, very much. And she chases the truck driver down at one point because he was filming her during, and then, that's when she ends up running into the miner and he pursues her and eventually kills her.
Mm-hmm.
So Axel, being the sheriff, gets the tape because it's the only footage they have of the killer and is watching it from the beginning, including her hooking up with the truck driver. And I get you have to watch it because of what happens, but feel like you should separate yourself from it. Shouldn't you say I'm too close to what happened that somebody else should have to watch it?
I mean, okay, devil's advocate here. He probably already seen Irene naked at some point in his life, so at least it's not an additional person.
But it's so weird when Sarah walks in on him watching it, and he's it's evidence, but it doesn't seem like evidence.
Right? Yeah. Want to hear something kind of gross that I found out?
Sure.
The guy who Irene is having sex with was the writer of the movie. Ooh. He wrote himself in a sex scene and then proceeded to write the following scene in which she comes out naked, because yes, she comes out to follow him butt-ass naked in front of, there's no one around, but it could have been. And I'm who does that? Who would have done that? Yeah, but the writer, that's the writer. He wanted a little cameo, so he wrote a sex scene for himself. How fun.
Yeah. That's definitely not the same
as
Stanley being in the Marvel movies or anything where he just is a cute little bus driver or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So this scene took me so out of it because I'm just what are we guys? Come on.
That's gross.
Yeah, so that's fun.
Yeah, hate that. While searching for Ben in the mine, Tom is confronted and locked in a utility cage by the miner. The miner kills his escort and vanishes. Tom insists Warden has returned, but Axel reveals that Ben and Burke killed Warden 10 years ago. So I guess he just knows that they went vigilante and went and killed this man.
Which
And
is weird.
the whole town covered it up.
Yeah, it's just bizarre because at the beginning of the movie, it's like you see them shoot him multiple times and he just kind of stumbles away, no problem.
And they don't confirm him being dead.
They could have just showed them killing him and making it this whole thing, because then you're like even more curious
as to how he's come back. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because then you could have like played into a supernatural element of it, maybe. I don't know. Like you could have just like showed him being finished off, not this like half-assed, he got shot. And then you thought maybe he was, I don't know. I was like, okay. So he's
a lot of
dead?
like no confirming deaths too. Like aside from the victims, we can confirm they're dead. But when it comes to this guy, they're just like, yeah, he's dead. He got away, but he's definitely dead. Like, no, not until you see him.
Right. It's confusing.
But speaking of supernatural, I will also say that we have another supernatural reference here. Funny how they always pair together. This is Jensen from Supernatural.
Jensen
He plays
Ackles.
Dean. Yes.
Yeah, if you didn't listen to our last episode, we covered House of Wax, which has Jared Padalecki.
Which is Sam.
Which is Sam. So, and we, if you see, we were in the same close. We batch record. So we covered both these movies at the same time. And one had one Winchester.
They were both be in it.
We have the Winchester pair. It's great.
Yes. Slasher against slasher. So the group goes out to investigate Warden's grave, but finds it empty. Tom resolves to stop Warden and discovers Axel and Megan's affair hideout. That night, the miner kills Ben and leaves his body in Warden's grave. At the sheriff's office, Axel reveals to his colleagues that he suspects Tom and Burke. And Burke was like the previous sheriff. He was the one that originally shot him. So I don't know why he would be a suspect, but I guess it's just so there's somebody else aside from Tom.
Right. Everyone's a suspect, Stephanie. You never know.
Right. That evening, the miner attacks Sarah and Megan at the store, killing Megan before Axel arrives.
Womp womp.
Yeah. She was also pregnant, and I was like, that feels bad.
Right. I know.
That just feels icky.
This is another thing. Like, realistically, you could have took this whole affair situation out of it, I feel, and it wouldn't have changed much. I will say, like, throughout, when Tom comes back, Axel becomes like very like, are you cheating on me with him? And I'm like,
when
my
he's
guy.
already been cheating. Like,
then Nick watched this with me too, and I turned to him. I'm like, that's why he's so suspicious, because he's doing the thing he's worried about. So it makes him like,
yeah, which just makes me not like him, and it kind of ruins this for me, the whole plot, honestly. Sarah is hospitalized with minor wounds. While guarding Sarah and Axel's house, Burke and Axel's maid are killed by the miner. Tom calls Sarah to tell her that he found something in Axel's cabin. As they drive, Tom suggests Axel is the killer. While they're in the car, Axel calls, urging Sarah to escape from Tom, revealing Tom's the killer, and he was in a mental institution for the past decade. I'm like, okay.
You're the killer, he's the killer, I'm the killer. It was very much that.
The car is the killer.
The car is Christine Part 2. Like, who knows what's going on?
Right. Tom becomes agitated, and Sarah crashes the car, escaping into the woods. Sarah hides in Axel's cabin, finding evidence of his affair and empty Valentine's boxes. There's
lots
like
of them.
300 of them in a cabinet somewhere. I'm like, oh, so it's definitely, Axel, you're bad. You're a bad man.
Right. And I don't know if we like made it super clear, but like every time there's a murder, they get a box with their heart in it.
Yeah.
So it's like, why do you need all these then if you're not the killer?
Exactly.
Unless you're cheating on Sarah with everyone. Megan's just one of 500.
Right. Everyone in town's pregnant with Axel's baby.
Oh, God.
The miner chases her into the mine. Axel arrives and Sarah grabs his gun. Tom shows up and Sarah holds them both at gunpoint as they accuse each other of being the killer. Tom reveals his knowledge of Megan's murder, exposing himself as the killer. And I was like, come on. Really? Really?
He's like, I told you about that.
We're doing this?
Like, Jensen, no.
No, Jensen, no. So suddenly he yells in fear as he hallucinates the miner coming towards Sarah, and it's just showing that the miner is his split personality. And I'm like, oh.
Do you think so? I will say I watched a kill count on this just because I wanted to get like the backstory straight because it
Yeah.
was we'll talk about it later. It's confusing. And we're like, wait a minute, is he possessed or is
Yeah,
it
they
like
were
actually just like a split thing? Like, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
yeah, because when Axel like realizes that he's like talking to Warden, he's like, "Are you living inside Tom?" I'm like, so that sounds like a possession situation, like a ghost is inhabiting his body. But then
Right.
we see him taking pills, and we know about the psychiatric stay.
Hmm.
So I guess he's just so traumatized that he just became Warden.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning to. But also, you could just make that connection that maybe he's like been possessed this whole time and that's what's making him seem crazy, quote unquote, like he's
Right.
actually just possessed. As like, it's not the opposite where you're like mentally ill and you've seen possessed, but no, like you're actually possessed but you look
Right.
mentally ill. I don't think that's the case, but they raised that point during the kill count, so I was like, oh, I wonder.
Yeah. And I get why they're doing it this way. It just was so, like, why bother having a mystery if
Hmm.
you're going to be like, I'm going to choose the most obvious person that could be the killer.
Yeah.
And I thought Axel would be more suited because, he's been jealous of Tom all this time. He wants to keep Sarah to himself, even though he's having an affair. He
Hmm.
kills the girl he's having an affair with because she's in the way. Like, you can tell he didn't
Or
want that
pregnant.
baby. Yeah, he
Yeah.
didn't want that baby. And it lined up to be a good reveal, and then her and Tom can be together because they were clearly, very much more in love than her and Axel ever were.
Hmm. Yeah.
But now we have to have Tom be the bad guy. I'm like, okay.
Womp womp. I was like,
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no longer interested.
I mean, spoiler, I wasn't interested at this point anyways, but like I'm
Fair.
really not interested.
A flashback reveals Tom digging up Warden's gear and committing all the murders since his return. Tom lunges, attacking Axel with his pickaxe, so Sarah shoots Tom, causing an explosion. Sarah and a wounded Axel are rescued, but Tom survives, killing a rescue worker and escaping in his gear. Again, they're just like, yep, Tom's dead. We saw him. He was dead.
And yeah. And then he's like 5 feet out of this mine and he takes his mask off. He's like, who cares if they
And
see
someone
me?
even like clocks him because he's like holding his wound.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, that's odd. And he's just like, yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, everyone sees his face. They're like, oh, that's definitely not Tom. Like,
It's
all
so
right.
bad. And then also, like, we didn't mention, but the movie's 3D, so every time he kills someone, like, part of their body goes flying at the screen.
I'm like, oh, those days of 3D. Like,
Yeah.
I remember that.
And
Good
I think it
times,
was
good times.
I think it was so misguided to blame it all on mental illness. Like,
I know we talk definitely has happened in many a movie we watched so far. It's just like one of those, like, it's gonna keep happening. And I'm just like, can we not? That's why I almost prefer he was possessed, because then at least he can't help this.
right. And then there's a way to save him too, in a way. Like,
Right.
then you could still, like, I'm sure they were trying to set up for Bloody Valentine 2. Don't really know or care if there is a sequel. But
Oh, I want to find out, and we're gonna do it
oh no.
next Valentine's Day. Yeah.
Oh no.
Buckle up. No, I don't know if
Boy.
it's
But
not.
yeah, like, then if it was a ghost, like, then there's also always a chance that it could be someone else, not just him,
Right.
But who cares? My Bloody Valentine attempts to weave together themes of revenge, guilt, and blame, all stemming from a tragic mining accident. The characters grapple with their past actions and the haunting consequences that follow. As the story unfolds, the theme of duality is present in the contrast between the seemingly normal lives of the characters and the dark secrets they hide. However, the film ultimately falls flat as it tries to delve into the impact of trauma on individuals in the community, using a fair amount of exposition to pad the showing of how past events shape present behaviors and relationships. The eliciting of fear and paranoia are lost in numerous backstories surrounding not the original killer, but someone impacted by the killer in a poorly crafted whodunit. These themes result in a lackluster narrative relying solely on its gory elements to maintain interest.
So, Stephanie, under suspense, where did you rate My Bloody Valentine?
Oh, a 1. He was always coming for them, so it was, not suspenseful because he was always there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably there too much.
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
I don't know if you noticed, but in the scene where they're at the store and they like barricade themselves in the room and then they like, oh, let's go out the window. He goes from that door all the way out of the building, all the way around to that window in approximately 0.2 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and
that's
then I
not...
was like, maybe that would make more sense if he was going for being a ghost.
Mhm.
But no.
No, not at all.
Not at all. What did you have for suspense?
I gave it a 1 as well. I will say, like, off the bat, there's this scene. It's like when the actual killer in the background, the 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
this scene is so dumb. It's so bad because they're being killed off in the mine and we have our main characters in front of this wall that's facing the killer, right?
Yes.
There's another guy who's not a main character. He just gets killed off immediately down the hallway. So the killer turns around, sees our main characters to the left that he has been trying to kill.
Mm-hmm.
He very clearly sees them. And then he sees the other guy and just completely ignores our main characters. And it's that kind of like plot armor to where it's like, you could have just killed your target right there.
Right.
I'm like, well, that just killed the momentum and the suspense of the scene. Because now they're like, okay, you could have just killed them off right there. Like that scene just like killed me.
Even
like what are we doing?
Even like the setup though, like when he first wakes up in the hospital, like the original killer, we see a nurse come in to check on him and his bed is empty and he's kind of like sitting down in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of like slowly see him start to get up and then it just cuts to black. I'm like, that's such a weird place to cut. Like right. Cut at him about to strangle her or, stab her, then maybe, but no, just slowly getting up out of his chair like I'm about to do something. And then cut to black.
And like, this movie is pretty gory. Like they show dismembered bodies everywhere. So that cut, because I know exactly what you're talking about, because it actually is like a wipe fade. Yeah. And I'm like,
why?
Why didn't you show that?
Why are you restraining that from us?
Right. So I kind of talked about this in our last episode with House of Wax, because also House of Wax wasn't like super suspenseful. Not to say it's bad in a sense, because there's some good chase scenes in here. He is a menacing figure, but like it's in terms of like building suspense, we got kind of just like cut to the chase with him. He's like in there chasing them. Like there's no build up to any of these chase scenes.
Around every corner he is there. There's never any like freakouts or jump scares where he's not there. He's just always there.
Right. So I'm like, okay, well, you didn't really tighten the screw at all here. So we're just like, okay. Well, we're immediately in the chase.
If there's anything scary, I just need to be running. So
right. So
yeah. What did you have for atmosphere for this?
I had atmosphere as a 2. Again, there's the small town element and then the mine element. The small town again looks nice. I would actually like move in a town like that. I'm like, this is quaint. So that brings it down from a scary perspective. The atmosphere would be like the woods and the mine. I'm super claustrophobic. So that alone, like just being there sets me off. So that's where the atmosphere gets bumped up, is the mine aspect of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the mine for me as well. It makes me think of like the mine portion of Until Dawn, just very claustrophobic. There's always that like potential that it'll collapse and it's not like anything to do with the killer. And it's just dark and like you can get lost. And like even the guy that takes him down into the mine, his, guide to lead him to wherever Ben is, he waves at him and he's like missing part of his fingers and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's just a dangerous place to be in general. So yeah, I'll give it that too for that.
What did you give plot?
A 1.
A 1. Okay.
Honestly, maybe even a 0, because I was just really disappointed with everything that they did.
Oh,
Just,
man.
yeah,
Nothing was scary for you. Just not.
well, like, I like the setup with the newspapers and stuff. Like, it really gets you, like, right into the drama and, like, the heart of what's going on in this town. But then just the choices they make after, it just... I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like that the police are just cool with him getting away after they shoot him, and they're like, yeah, pretty much dead. And also find it odd that the FBI aren't involved in this massacre that keeps happening now that it's like on repeat after 10 years.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
that's just left to a local sheriff.
Yeah. Maybe
And-
because it was so sudden. Like, they were still like, it wasn't like a long drawn out thing. So maybe that's why they weren't involved quite yet. So
yeah,
play
maybe.
devil's advocate there.
Maybe, but then I was just disappointed that it had to be Tom. I really wanted him to like kind of redeem himself and come back and like, he is initially to blame for what happened, but ultimately the killer is who killed everyone in the mines. Like, they even say in the report too that like the collapse didn't kill the miners, it was the killer. Like, he just killed them. So even though, yeah, that's on Tom for the accident happening, he didn't make it happen.
Right. Yeah, I know. Right. It's like you blame someone for, yeah, the chain of events led us here, but like the initial event wasn't, like, I didn't kill these people, to your
and
point.
I guess
so.
I get where they're going with the whole, like, the guilt of it all, of the whole scenario makes it what it is. But honestly, if that person had it in him to kill people, 6 people, and then wake up and keep killing people after being out of the circumstance, I feel like that was just an inevitable thing that was going to happen in his work environment.
Exactly, for sure. I gave it a 1 as well, largely for your reasonings. I feel like, so in this movie, there's like a backstory into a backstory. So you get the incident initially. The guy is in a coma, wakes up, kills everyone. Then we go 10 years later. I am much more...
No, it's like incident 1 year later, then 10 years later.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, that's what I meant when he woke up from his
gotcha.
whatever. I was much more interested in the initial accident. I feel like the movie could have been the accident. A year later, that whole massacre could have been the movie.
Right.
Not like 10 years later again. I was like, wait, what? So I was like disappointed that that's where it went. And then ultimately it being like this whole mental illness thing again.
Right.
So that's why it's like low for me. I feel like there's like something there, but I feel it should have been the accident, then the massacre. I don't think it had to be this weird, like, who is it? Like, I think it was fine knowing it was the guy who survived. I think that's a little bit more compelling because you could delve into like when these things happen, what he had to do to survive. I do know, this is the original, that the guy to survive actually ate the other miners too.
Oh.
So I thought that would have been like really interesting.
Honestly, they could have done the first half of it, them being trapped in the mine and what he does to survive. And like, obviously he's got to break with reality or something, to compel him to do all of this. So I thought that would be interesting. I also think the concept of being trapped in a mine and having this awful situation would be very like the situation with like Alive, like with the airplane and being stranded on the mountain with the team. That would be like an interesting concept of just, you're all together, you're working, you are a team essentially, and then just somebody goes crazy and just can't deal. Yeah. And then we could go from the coma on to him being like, I'm not gonna stop.
Exactly. So I just was disappointed where it ended up going in this weird love triangle I didn't care about.
Yeah.
And affairs
it just seems so underplayed, like downplayed too. Like we just like, I hate that guy. I'm like, okay, why do you hate him? Like, I don't get it. I guess maybe his dad worked at the mine. I don't know.
Maybe just because they used to date. I don't know. I will say that because it's a Valentine's movie, that there has to be some sort of element of like love and relationships.
Yes.
But we could have just done it differently. Like, I don't know. Give it a different motive, or like he was just going after couples, something like that. I don't know.
Right.
So, wasn't my favorite plot.
What did you think about the villain Danger? aspect of the movie?
I gave it a 2. I will say he's an opposing force. He is if I saw him, I'd be scared. Like, that mask is creepy. I didn't give it a full 3 or anything because of the ultimate, like, it was Tom.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But that pickaxe is his signature weapon. That's a pretty unique one, and I thought it was cool. I thought it was a pretty scary villain.
Yeah, I agree. I also gave it a 2. Like I said, disappointed that's Tom, but yeah, with it being like he uses the pickaxe for everything. It's just like his right hand, honestly.
Right.
And I mean, it does make for some interesting deaths. Like there's one where he like hooks it through someone's jaw underneath and then just pulls the jaw out, and that's another 3D moment that it comes like flying at you. But yeah, I think he's definitely opposing. I would run from him if I saw him, even if he was just a regular minor guy. I'd probably run from him anyway because the masks are weird.
Right, exactly. I think the mask is the scariest part for sure.
Yeah.
So did you give My Bloody Valentine your extra special bonus point?
I didn't. I withheld it.
Okay. Any particular reason?
I again, just because disappointed how they unmasked the killer. It didn't really need to be that way or even be like an investigation or surprise if we wanted to go with it being the most obvious choice. Tom, we could have just had it from his perspective the whole time.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's totally fair, because when we were talking before recording, I had mentioned that I wasn't going to give it my point either. But then I felt that something we didn't really touch upon, I did briefly, was just like the amount of gore in this movie. And while I was ultimately disappointed with the movie overall, I still think the gore was enough to like give it that extra scary point to me.
Fair.
So I was like, I feel like it's bloody enough. The kills are pretty good. There's a scene where the lady falls out of the dryer and her face is just completely like melted and gone.
Yeah.
So I'm like, for this round, I'm like, I feel like the gore does elevate it to there. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give it that point. Overall, it wasn't my cup of tea in the movie sense, but I think the elements were there, at least to like, I'm like, okay, I'll give it that point.
Okay, fair enough.
So if we add them up, you gave My Bloody Valentine a 6 overall, and then mine was a 7 because of the bonus point. So again, it's not, it feels like a very run-of-the-mill slasher film. I'd be very curious to see the original because I heard that was actually pretty good.
Oh, okay.
To compare and contrast.
I'd consider.
Because I could, there's something there. There's a good movie there.
Yeah.
But it's just like,
just the direction they chose.
Yeah. Exactly. So it could be a little scary for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely gruesome at parts, but yeah, just disappointed with the story that they chose to tell. I think it would have been really way more interesting if they would have just focused on the actual accident with the mine.
Exactly, for sure. And it's an hour and 44-ish minutes. I feel like you could have cut off a good 20 and it would have been a little bit more concise. Remove Megan, these weird love triangles, and I feel like it would have been serviceable.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just also, you didn't have to bother with a mystery if we were just going to go with the most obvious person. Just unmask him, make it make more sense why he's coming back after 10 years if he's going to just kill everyone.
Right. Like, not every movie has to have this like weird twist, like this shocking moment. Like sometimes the most direct answer is just like good enough.
Yes, right. I'm like, if you're going to make a mystery, make it compelling for me.
Right. Serve me more. This is not doing it.
Right.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show and listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, giving us a 5-star rating is super helpful. We'll always appreciate that. If you are watching the YouTube version, you could like and comment on this video and let us know if there's a movie you want us to cover.
You can find us on social media using 13 Degrees of Screams.
This has been 13 Degrees of Screams, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.